Advantage 1 is North Korea. North Korean doctrinal, U.S. North Korea crisis is imminent. Club 24 Kim. Advantage Xi Jinping to go to war. This become a crisis for death propaganda during Trump Kim. Is that Americans always equal to him to doctrine nukes use for response to any perceived nuclear attack on all strategic calculations and struggling asymmetric combinations. So no point U.S. weaker countries have nothing loose to prevent against North. Making war paradigm as U.S. policies focus on reductions such as communicating nuke doctrines could build enough trust. North Korean doctrinal shifts increase the risk of inverting nuclear escalation acted. And Japan is working to open nuke doctrine changes this. Invert nuke war nation problem everything current policy watching down to attacks and nukes automatically enabling her trigger legally or enable launch war computer initiation war based on all U.S. officials about level launch focus on U.S. by word about using digitally. I believe U.S. use probability to use U.S. with direct communication on conventional forces as social media signal for those several Kim is Washington. Taking a lot of measures to mitigate the risk of escalation. Conflict will rapidly escalate due to numerous converging factors. Kim's 20 hard to say. No goes combination one, but it rises turns the third time to issue to strike a large war game, never slated parasilly. It's hard to complications to handle united community kind of forces and strike coming. I don't know if CZ no consider disability to history, CZ possible control, failure, turning possible matter. The condition no case, by some sense, like TS has to use dark sources small fury. I'm already aggressive as TS can open US as body computer, especially as which times likely vertical lens. Our biggest concentrates of what is being more solvent return by attacks and removing all options on the table get there. Threats to Korean second strike survivability. Second strike survivability are the motivating factor for positive control. Konami's 20 learning. No one was war consider predator against local contradiction strikes tested by durability no British jerseys. This is a real decapitation, no possible control, but essential launch point for strikes and motion abuse. Regardless of escalation, perceived no go structural global with free use no go. Unheritorial automobile strike first potential risk of war for possible crisis threshold. With every level to drop one no go, constantly to recognize no go. In a failed daily system, stage ensures on your rational, what's in the rational freezing versus evil. Acknowledge no go threats or benefits, also the result of war. The plan incredibly assuages North Korean fears, but faces little backlash from allies, especially South Korea and Japan. Chang 20 overseas limited zero to strike no go place. The U.S. and complies under law, war use termination for accidental user after this focus there's allies separate and nuclear war micro issues using systems against attack and allies maintain. Is that how your words protection leaving international crisis regarding use our considered good faith credible and if you possible use demonstrate. Eliminate safe robots to support the IC so good Japan rate research period determination strong possibly and if you push you know true TW should you move through the possible result of your revolutionize the international reviews. You're just going to trying to use the useful gravitation if you plan to redefine new deterrence driven peace rather than aggression. North Korea demands an unconditional and universal policy. Kim 23 no go argues here ensures limited conditional and Japanese money unconditional North Korea and state demands mandatory on the table and our consistent risk concern and we have first plus their condition going. President states specifies U.S. formal assured limited nuclear recovery and no complaint about language. U.S. policy team counter repeated concern and every consistent across all policy instruments. Declaratory policy is uniquely credible for Korea to all the Kim 23 to go. Willing to damage the resources of pride is able to make these vision new people use security reasons for reported leaking. No course to use for progress things for great durability corporate behavioral self-correct expectations for about future action price declared reaction fall. Statements of intent about threats operations meetings unilateral statements. Advantage 2 is NC3. Vulnerabilities to nuclear architecture abound. The set of non-kinetic and kinetic capabilities and entangled assets coupled with the first use posture locks in nuclear use for prevention body 21 vulnerability. This advertises long range AW hybrids nuke using systems. Assured crossing that is amazing as regards to isolation efforts for attacks for defensive war having security phase. A shot of material events calling opportunity for mistakes about improving functionality recognized. Therefore partially forces and SC3 force and untravel force increase time reduce sufficiently. Resolution heavy configured tasking atmosphere use of the outside defense will have a complicated function which increase risk. The likelihood of nuclear use giving current postures high only if you avoid exceptions to secure Blair's 22nd strike. Links up on multiple system first is ability to just use vigorously rubber train purpose management system stop sign first loader safety lies and private train use US lines from systems healing solutions terms secure should be lost confidence US remain coupled with emergency post first it has to move over because first was hypersonic cyber network class makes use for strike first ball putting latest cyber produce on launch use not guarantee security bug free or hardware officially with threat more plus power rate danger worse daily first use less ill but posture for provider for blow packages manual planners needed to counter wide range conventional biochem and cyber vision by the first control weapons and prevents access to nuclear weapons layered all 18C3 house rebel fill station safety measures secure safeguards and safety features centered neither inside or outside political terrorists nuclear listed possible to launch an negative order modernize can be overstated this critical war strengthening place your presence over mod nuclear terrorism causes extinction Android 22 nuclear ensure resolution triggered by attack by terrorists military horrible smuggling weapons release 100 Washington serious quickly extended nuclear action cheese uncertainties of war and it prevents ASAT attacks that risk nuclear use act in 18 declared to us extra for damaging threats that's concerning Russia China advocating attacking hospitals also seals and probability monitor people use give Russia China attack use use structural war use for responsible see Russia use to know a better rebuild more resilient architecture ASATs are existential Adams 18 potential for accident new to resource the US has taken about soul for the reward Russia Chinese says second ASAT fluid who believe this great strike mission capacity with defenses we commonly know as we war an existential threat likely to disappear. The plan ensures credible NC3 security and modernization which demands a second strike posture that preserves the credibility of the nuclear deterrent periodically to 20 move first second use recoming CC's quick launch more decision what's the pound system with standard attack new CC rapid likely causing essential priorities modernization from Friday first ever ASAT has greater cavity Russia China and India issue with the president maintaining commonly is vulnerable to direct attackers having cruise time and obviously also for things to for deterrent system having credible overhauling make clear funding only justified and then second strike little reason to invest it's probable that the primary plan is launch first it requires modifications to declaratory policy the failure to obviate first use results in an incredible posture that invites NC3 attacks Montgomery 23 or 22 NC3 enterprise using policy risk or growing counterfeit computer capabilities enhancing ability to take on inflating W causing increase like the SCV's fair gaming potential flight opponent to greater use to term policy effect proportional no present sanction technique killing your plus undependent on any with threat lax credit policy is unlikely to be fair global consider what is no more to disregard consider confirmation Washington have little reason to escalate fighting vendors under my credit with threats and vulnerable grade commit sharps and obvious aggression attacks like US vulnerable to my first striker coercion convincing US accept nuclear deployment is necessary. Advantage 3 is stability. US nuclear posture drives adverse allied and adversarial perceptions degrading crisis stability in numerous hotspots, and ensuring nuclear escalation, narrowing and SIG in 23 new states, navigating multiple interactions, China, all states and regional more similar to war forces, and risk of for new users, high frequency, flexing, intensive interaction, enables leaders of the form of crisis, acting, handles crisis, severe complicated stability, cross series, transfer, build realms, high confidence, wise, otherwise, figures, having, for counter, camera, force, facilitation, using, the US with pressure on new powers, reverse, close, vulnerability, relative, risk, more, fair, plug, place, political, starting, territory, states of issue, trigger, freeze, usable, and fears, worldwide, survivability, sees, manifest, with the delegated, realm, pressure, user, for sectors, first, accident, deliberate, accidental, and avert, use this, in complicated, to gauge, power, strikes, minute, reach, risk, rally, select, increased number, and vacuums, cost, problem, friends, be, volatile, employees, temperatures, we use good, reduce risk, rules, royalty, production, escalation, those form, and calibrated, enemy, calibrated, CVM, including the setting, which is those point measures, to reduce world news, find enough, no first use, NPR, fantasy, the likelihood of accidental or unauthorized use is exponential, given posture alterations, stutter, 21, safeguards, for weak government, has not false relation to by trade, or positive, control, reduce warning, times, legality, plan, response use, make the stage, raise, miss, how deadly feels, and free missiles, those are growing, increases, trade, unauthorized use, by rogue escalation, and increase, liberty, use, accident, or miss, calculation, Taiwan, reputation, near, line, basic, small change, have catastrophic consequences, quickly, escape, liberty, here, necessity, legally, miscount, and mission may cause catastrophic. The emergent nuclear order presents unique convergence of risk tolerance, 23 turns crisis, still have multiple nuke states, going to send both by immediate damage, south, not price, for amount, obsolete, damage, limitation, the shot, reaction, use, removing forces, trouble, or trouble, threatening, change, improve, counter force, attack, one cascade, reaching back, lines, hearts, hold, no, trying to leave this restrict, fears, and all crisis, use, lines, taking another risk, action, or not, use, consequences, arsenal, composition, security, politics, incentives, procedures, health, behavior, catastrophe, process for horizontal escalation, team, high concur, crisis, aspect, other use, Russian, China, and effects of many states, alarms, study, quickly drama, secretly, true, attack, a new force, CC, simultaneously, harder to escalate, difficult, with signals, misunderstanding, calling, signaling, instability, by inferred force, or possible risk, miscalculate, escalation, accident, or authorized use, dominant, defeat, dominant, smart, self, computer placement, instability, dominant. The plan solves instability. 1, credibility, first use postures, inherently not credible, or generating commitment traps that risk nuclear conflict, 21, here's force solutions, political problem, nuclear turns, out of term, North Carolina, war decision, has history, human science, transit, claim, redrawing use, partial state empire, and ambiguity, intellectual laces, sleight of hand, where every bias continues on ring, similar to nuclear use, turns, place, venture, deep, pillars, sonic, close, convince, call the question, all matters, great, trap, force, unnecessary use, survival, like ever, comic, character, ambiguity, discontinuity, decision, irrational, thought, future, something, which are used for tokens and probability, but exposed, as well as creating sturdy, rescue, aggressor, interest, credit, confident, constitution, constitution, experience, Singapore, while we're taking problems, real, not detail, understand, use, guarantees, miracle, depends on, accepting the same rules, mindset, impossible, neither, kind of, trying to be or it can be the same reverse missing, average falls, missing, self-required, escalate, maintain, ready, film, the rabbit hole. 2, posture, first adversaries to adopt dangerous force postures, well, 21 use, always gives the arsenal lines, but it's made possible first use, defend, always, if it's easy, which parts, watch, strong pace, safe person, related to hurdle adversaries, to fall back, keeping force on hurdle, having other procedures, increase risk, accidental, inferred, war, no matter what use, forces, capable in theory, that rarely has on extended turns, always serious risk, may continue to grow, and if US wages, adversary, fierce friends, accidental, US, launch, Tandem, 22, threats on the right, price, really, rush, trying to use, first, healing, increase, and work, leaving, of your research, leaving, source, of changes, limit, deceleration, tragedy, insights, retain, reduce risk, accidental, unauthorized, creative use, rush, packs, away from high risk, common increase, these policies, trying to create legal space of fall suit, plan, the United States should adopt a policy of nuclear no first use, solvency, that solves first use fears and maintains a second strike deterrent, Perry and Kalina 20, launching on warning is too dangerous, press-worthy, and Kalina, beautiful, small, contract, impulse, weakness, civil survivors, drinking potential theory, with no present use, first, first, not credible against nuclear armor, first use, suicide, non-nuclear, first use, always start a race, nuclear, make use, snap, so against your top level, policy, action, nuclear, wireless, determine response, present, mental, arsenal, always need to be reassured, must be unambiguous and comprehensive, probably 10, and legal political whiteness, including a lot of sentiment, and black, all for value, conference, plan, all states, the states, people, rated, proper, training, more, and president, chief, says that if you want for the comparable church, related exceptions, limit, recipients, transfer, conference, body, and ancillary, satisfied, versus to the MT, no, conference benefit, but the U.S. establishment is not your worst nations, care about nuances. The plan is credible. 1, process, it says expectations, 721, our states, which we believes about practice, play, post-legislative coverage, policy goals, intention of expectations, and a virtual cycle, if you not have themselves expertly, important meter reduction, maintaining commitment, not relevant, absolute necessary waste station. 2, red lines, words alone are enough. Leave it 23, or convert red lines, teacher, Congress, policy, general, court, holy, always, adversaries, not policy, not assume, actually, cloud, leaders, clear, create, impact, more ideas, all directors, teacher, type reputations, fits other leaders, looking out for those, the only force they want. Words 3, empirics, they prove the plan is well received, Hansen 21, declare, and if you reduce media occasionally to further stressful research, check a response for rodents, horse reasons, instances of have a clear report for house, not other ideas, not in the Washington, not a president, China, Russia, India, and by past line drawing, fault 19, and UCLA, you know, Russia, benefit for clarification, intended for pronunciation, or more for responding, declaration, come to by class, active drawing line, fried line, easily visible, improves quality of order. I need some water real quick. Let's go.
Good? Okay. Plan, just declaratory?
Yeah.
Okay, your first card under solvency talks about changing launch on warning posture. If you just declare things, how do you solve?
The first card under solvency is talking, I think, about changing adversaries launch on warning postures through sending the signal of the plan. Am I wrong, Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm confused. So like, your argument is US says some words and then adversaries are like, we don't need to launch on warning anymore?
Okay, well, okay. No, I misread the card. The card that you're referring to is the Perry and Kalina card that says that the United States needs to have complete information before it decides to launch a nuclear strike, which is only possible in a world where we first have to be hit with a nuclear weapon before we are able to retaliate with one, which is
Correct. My question is more, if you don't take the warheads off alert, why would our adversaries ever believe our declaratory posture?
Well, we've read like a lot of evidence that indicates that the plan does things like ties the United States' reputation to the signal that the announcement of the plan, for example. We've read evidence that says that empirically, when China and India have adopted measures that are similar to the plan, that has resulted in other states perceiving those policies as credible.
And like to be clear, when we say yes, the mandate of the plan is just declaratory, it will not result in operational changes like de-alerting or anything like that. But our piece of 1AC Koplo evidence says that, something like an NFU would logically result in altering, military training exercises and war planning because the United States can no longer engage in first use, when the military must then plan.
So will change potential military contingencies won't be alert. That makes sense to me. The no-code advantage. Your clue card cites a report from Carlin and Hecker who say Kim has made the strategic decision to go to war. If he's going to war and will use nuclear weapons, is your argument just then we reciprocally respond?
That's a mischaracterization of what that report said. That report said that Kim is no longer committed to unification on the Korean Peninsula, and he's adopted nuclear posture that is in line with that commitment not to unify.
And to preempt the 1AC card you're going to read, any indite of the Hecker article doesn't make any sense because the argument that Kluth is making is actually a subset of that, which is not that Kim will engage in an invasion now, because that's not what Afghanistan has anything to do with. Rather, it's citing the Spanlo Sukin article, which says that North Korea will engage in minor provocations in an attempt to sort of provoke the United States into a small crisis.
Because the problem with the Hecker article is that it assumes Korea is going to invade, that Kluth is criticizing that idea and using other empirical studies to inform his criticism.
Okay, so your argument is we'll use some kind of provocation now and then the US over-responds to the provocations?
That's one of our internal links. We also have another internal link about North Korea pre-delegating nuclear launch authority as a result of US first strike posture and making them likely to misperceive even like a sort of proportional US response as threatening their nuclear arsenal in a way that would cause them to launch accidentally.
Okay, that makes sense to me. The NC3 advantage talks about, like, your first card talks about locked-in vulnerabilities. The first line of that card says upgrades are happening through the nuclear modernization plan.
Yes.
This card was from 3 years ago. Have those upgrades happen? Have they not?
And then the subsequent 4 paragraphs says that those upgrades are not enough because of first strike posture, creating inherent vulnerabilities.
Okay, so here's where I'm confused. You just declare something, you don't change posture. Why we're out, like,
We
how
think
do you
that the
solve the
result
threat?
of the plan would be that the United States adopts command and control basically with a second strike posture, even if it's not a mandate.
1C was sent, it's 5 off, and then based in the order of 1C. Kentucky, did you all get it?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm good.
First off, the United States should negotiate with the Democratic Republic of Korea towards a new relationship, complete denuclearization, establishment of peace in the Korean Peninsula, cooperate with South Korea, China, and Japan to offer humanitarian assistance to the DPRK, coordinate with allies, and China the reciprocal steps and assurances in exchange for the DPRK denuclearization, invite the DPRK to participate in multilateral non-proliferation initiatives, complete a nuclear fail-safe review that encourages international nuclear reviews to define norms, exchange data, reduce the risk of mistaken nuclear use, eliminate the launch under attack nuclear option, take land-based nuclear missiles off alert, engage in sustained and detailed strategic stability discussion with Russia and China with first phases working groups to discuss the world with and without strategic stability, and phase 2 translate that dialogue and policy relevant action specifically through a backcasting approach, plank 1's engagement, solve no conflict, Kim 21 there's no so with the best option percent sustained diplomacy, period the best deterrence to be young and older, possession there no continue events program cannot cause strike diplomacy should be top priority operations and insert momentum I should empower negotiating team to work toward a new relationship negotiation PCs along the peninsula, cooperate with Soka, China, and Japan to offer humanitarian access to build confidence, generate peace, positive atmosphere of negotiations, permanent signals, reduce provocations, coordination, here restrictions, shared behavior that should strengthen the existing sanctual laying out reciprocal steps and sanctual relieving exchange for damage to freeze and eliminate programs and invite Pyongyang to non-proliferation initiatives, build confidence and increase integration in the global arena. 1AC Blair proves the alert status blank and the counterplan stalls. MSU is in green, but Blair 20 and other countries say yes to nuclear review. It solves miscalc and accidents. Moniz and none. 23. Every new state is interested in tools to prevent mistake diamond access for Washington failures like review existing other capitals given the accidents, sabotage, or miscalc. Any country nuke should conduct its own review. Specified portion should be shared. The US co-op as part of the review to help define norms to protect arsenals from cyber attacks. Also exchange data from EWS and for notification on launches such as that preventing crucial government to prevent mistaken nuclear response and strategic stability dialogue, solves crisis stability, proclamation values 21 preventing and managing escalation is central cautious thinking
strengthen the deterrence of leaders, understand risk of an escalation that could be more inclined to damn crisis or initiation or de-escalate before nukes. U.S. Russia and China should understand the problem and create venues for dialogue. Such dialogue help clarify whether and how force postures, procurement, and CBMs could mitigate dangers in escalation. Next off. NATO unity is high, strategic goals are aligned. Garbage 717. NATO summit demonstrated unprecedented unity among the members. Nations have been in place long-term since the newer nations around Ukraine and Sweden's membership. There is unity and others take advantage of that accomplished goals set out in NFU for actions NATO alliance. Council 21 calculate educated maintains long-standing consensus within NATO alliance and new policy consensus would be difficult if key members had policies and direct contradictions. Such a factor would be self-inflicted will that weaken NATO or US. NFU with the US and odds with the two nuke allies, UK, France, and with NATO tradition of calculated educated would reinforce disarray and loss of NATO security alignment, destroy space, situational awareness, burn 20, anti-static creative degrees, launches and science space contested and competitive, also increase global dependence on space reality. Adversarial actors exploit fear of collision of malign activity or rational counter space weapons, anti-sat non-kinetic attacks on sats at orbital weapons can stock systems neutralized during a crisis. Warns globally recognized norms that contribute to security. NATO's the largest intergovernmental org. NATO, the 30 nations based on collective plans, core tasks of deterrence, diplomatic, political functions, unique to its ability to advance collaboration concerning space cooperation, enhance interoperability, including sharing assets, a strengths line and ability to act together coherently, effectively to achieve objectives, and lack of SSA sparks conflict, space arms race, and sense space terror response. Cycle 14 US satellites reduce ability to attack terrorists with 10 precision ammunition and conducts imagery analysis of new program recon missile defense other missions critical to net security and NetSec global security would be effective space activities on potential international conflict space ground interference with it's further militarization destabilizing international dynamics and timely accurate military management crisis difficult to interpret malfunction cause requires analysts and have a choice by create first strike instead of the US could promote multi-line info exchange SANSP. Next off. The plan divides NATO by making the U.S. an ally wrecking deterrence Robertson 21 shift NFU wants to resist would underwrite deterrence by NATO increases the conflict NATO's nuclear allies deliberately ambiguous circumstances which authorize nukes and Russia's invasion and massive boosting capabilities raise the profile of nukes and NATO's defense posture and duties necessary eye-catching U.S. declaration would undermine the NATO alliance and Russian nuclear use is likely and successful expansion and encourages other revisions to active British Battle 23 Putin brought the world closer to bring nuclear rig than anytime Putin displayed readiness to break taboo but despite setbacks miscalculation Moscow and not change Putin wants to hang Europe with a back to SOI no sign readiness and conflict and versus the seizing of Park City will encourage others to, with ambitious ambitions to follow example important China seeking to subjugate Taiwan, Putin ambition to extend beyond Ukraine, induce Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania covered by Article 5 and US Secret Umbrella and Russia.
Further next is that.
Next is fusion energy is inextricably linked to nuclear modernization. Fusion is close now, but impossible without a commitment to nuclear modernization. Plan 23 and unity sides our primary energy source like fusion is getting impossible. She does no military work close making it work. This outside is fusion and linked inextricably to nuclear weapons research presents RISA. NIF was able to identify clean energy budget of advanced weapons and recent NIF has funded its nuclear weapons research for fusion energy. Those are spin-off benefits and when you see Tenenwall proves a critical NFU as modernization. Tenenwall 22 emphasis of training knowledge of Bueller procurement and modernization plans and U.S. leadership in nuclear fusion chucks. A laundry list of Brits including all proliferate security and warming Getty 20. Nuclear power, not merely energy issues, power to leveraging nuclear collaboration to meet geopolitical objectives. America's reach research powers to become leaders in nuclear science, engineering, and tech with diverse application and energy among countries' most important research and energy sector relationship and international center because of dual utility. Nuclear power is an instrument of foreign policy, a multipolar center with nations turning nuclear powers to meet development need humans for U.S. to sustain leadership system in nuclear tech, uphold commitment to control nuclear energy, maintain to reliable electric grid balance and meet challenges of climate change while disengaging from nuclear power and nuclear acquisition from fusion risks. War Dissident 23 tritium is essential for modern nuclear limited could be a pearl control mechanism. Tritium suitable for use. War has not regulated risk aversion, major concern of risk. Appears in experiments to see long before electricity generation. Research supported infrastructure kills nuclear materials builds a high probability once capacity exists. That suggests nations often acquire nuclear arms that have technical capacity. Modern models indicate disruption from war involving 100 weapons could be catastrophic for global human and environmental health concerns. Weakening of barriers to nuclear acquisition. Fusion can compromise both barriers. Now the North Korea advantage. No war with NOCO. Now Sehun 124 still start disagreement. NOCO wants to war unless society becomes suicidal. No well. No too well that they cannot win the war. Analysts in China also deeply skeptical. Many runs NOCO can climb short of all-out war and first use threats to turn North Korean aggression. Plan breaks the turn sources 23 TPRK U.S. extreme battles. Pyongyang knows chances of regime survival will be effectively zero conventional defeat. Enormous incentive to escalate to nuclear level, striving for mobile usable force increasing nuclear coercion, relying on first victor damage to limit damage U.S. Most precise and robust defensive and offensive capabilities. Signal U.S. willing to preempt persuading Pyongyang to back down. Most attacks blood NATO strategy limited attack demonstrate willingness to escalate most probable. Pyongyang wants a deliberate nuclear strike and nukes are key to deterrence of North Korea. Milwaukee Independence 24 intercontinental ballistic missile change reach security calculation only scenario North Korea anymore NOCO will roughly lose conventional conflict dramatically raise the likelihood it will use first technically absolutely needing nuclear weapons. And NOCO would never believe that U.S. NFU Tetris 19, but no one can believe Pyongyang would feel reassured by NFU conventional superiority security matters more weapon aligned countries consider not nuke states feel battle line. And if and when push came to shove, given misperception and paranoia regarding Western military policy and general value, and if you be limited. Now, the
Kim would never pre-delegate, he likes to hold power.
Kim would never pre-delegate, he likes to hold power. The NC3 advantage. Declaratory policy fails. Perkovich values when Russia tries to pay more attention to capabilities and declares potential declaration with our reduction of weapons will be relatively meaningless, yet PC push and you will leave little left to overcome resistance to force posture. PC ways to force posture remain the same. Changes in force posture are critical components, even with operational changes. Empirical record of the capabilities proves that credible chambers 21 NFUs unlikely to alter how they perceive the US will approach crisis, even if NFUs intended by downgrading forces. Russia and China will continue to use and change superiority of other forces ultimately overrule or outweigh. For example, dealers not likely to change planning. SOBM's barriers to credible NFU appear severe, especially for the US, and plans to be announced. Adversaries would assume is reversible by future administration. Uncredible pledges are words for stability. Wagner and 11 is your with nuclear rivals, unlikely the adversary will reach by official US secretary policy rather than being restricted by the NFU. Adversaries might view it as cheap, part of a deception campaign designed to hold the minimum security. Declaratory policy would not do much to reduce crisis instability. Might actually make things worse. Adversaries believe NFU is part of a deception operation, advanced prepared strike, and no hair trigger impact. Yellow 21 and claim that ICM is our hair trigger persistence despite multiple senior military leaders having discredited that falsity. Argument goes nuclear can start with false alarm. Yet commanders can't come on made clear hair trigger not a thing. ICM's response is yes, but responses are directly to being just a breath away from accidental launch. Use not rely on LOW. Rather, the president has a number of response options that do not limit them, but to either using or losing a host of sensors backed by decision type context that also plays a role. Attack within mounting tension, make false alarm probable, trained sensors, put info together, and as vice president, the US retain an option to launch before attack detonates. In practice, the president can also weigh in and use themselves spoofing or ICBM hiking. Perkovich value prove the status quo solved. Insert now all the credible defense is internally defense, which means they can't say that we drop all these impacts. Now the stability advantage. NFU causes destabilize the conventional buildup and arms race to cost 21 use. Nuke posture motivate greater airborne resources and conventional capabilities. Easy to see that since nukes can no longer be used to balance conventional forces, predict prudence dictates greater conventional balance. And if you mean untested by conventional arms race, trying to react by enhanced conventional capabilities, increasing reliance on nukes or both. And moderation is now nuclear doctrine is relevant to force non-use and conventional superiority, especially that cause mistalk and Apple will also year 18 accidental wars to measure to increase survivabilities, include launch of one of the delegating for rapid after to take all these survivability measures on images. First, you must believe that these are beneficial against nuclear strike, but not conventional strike. If you be made dangerous, but overwhelming conventional superiority, and if you may be dangerous, the average free strings out from you, nuclear doctrine for rest from credible capabilities.
Are you ready? First, the deterrence argument on the case. Why does North Korea think that they can win a war in the world of the plan?
What do you mean?
Your uniqueness card says that's the reason North Korea is not currently going to war against the United States. Why does that change post-plan?
Two things. One is they feel that if the US is not going to get involved nuclearly, they can use a escalate strategy to lower propagation thresholds and launch testing.
So
Second is it emboldens Kim in response to internal regime pressures, which their own evidence we talk about. Third is it discredits South Korea's defense posture, which means Kim feels incentivized to engage.
Okay.
And
I'm
fourth,
gonna ask another question. To be clear, is the impact of this that North Korea will invade South Korea?
it doesn't have to be. The impact
What
is...
does the impact have to be then?
So there's a couple of things the one in C-Card talks about. It could be North Korea invades South Korea. It could be North Korea uses nukes first. It could be they use biological or chemical weapons.
Back up. But if they use nukes, then the U.S. gets drawn in. The plan doesn't prohibit the United States from doing so. Then North Korea would just lose the war. Why is that an impact?
Our evidence is very specific that the ability of the U.S. to leverage first use strikes is what prevents North Korea from launching nukes.
Okay.
I.e., in the world of the plan, they are incentivized to do so.
The counterpoint. What's the status of the counterpoint?
It's unconditional.
Can you kick planks?
No, we can just say planks can't solve. But
Okay. Is the plank 3, does it establish a hotline? What exactly does the
Yeah, so the Perkovich and Batty evidence talks about how sort of discussions between great powers in like strategic stability dialogue and phase through this discussion is necessary. So it would understand North Korea and other adversaries' force postures, why they do what they do, and how to come to the table
Okay.
about how to like reduce the risk of conflict.
Okay, so like, is that yes, no?
I mean, a hotline is likely a spillover effect of the counterline that we have.
Why would China come to the phone when they've already said that they don't want to?
Well, our argument is that both sides have an incentive for conflict not to escalate. If they see that we're actively in good faith.
Well, wait. If that incentive exists, why isn't China doing dialogue now? Why do they cancel the hotline?
Well, what do you mean? Why don't they cancel?
China doesn't want war. Why do
we're
they
not
stop?
doing like nuclear arms reductions nuclear arms reduction talks with North Korea and Russia now.
So?
Obviously, if we've come to the table and proved that
Why
we are
does
like,
that incentive override the incentive not to go to war?
because it is, what do you mean, why doesn't overcome? Our argument is that the US and China both have an incentive to not go to go to war. If they
Okay.
see, the US is in good faith, actively pursuing
Okay.
nuclear reduction
I-
talks.
I have another question. The fusion dissent, your card is like a scientist describing how nuclear weapons can be proliferated. Like what country? Like we need to read 2AC defense. I don't think you read a complete argument.
Well, there's a litany of countries
Which ones?
there are countries like Japan, South Korea, those
Can
have
you read me a
treaty-
line from a card that says this, just to make sure that this was an argument?
I mean, we can read more evidence in the
Also,
law.
Okay, so
David,
now-
I think you
like,
missed the
haven't-
point. The reason, it's not country specific is because by expanding fusion tech uncooperatively and unsafe around the globe, almost anyone could proliferate. If they
Almost anyone
engage in
could.
uncooperative
That seems like a high
or
burden for this
unresponsive
person to answer.
fusion development.
Can you run from?
Yeah, we're running.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
Yep.
That one. Not you. Does the counterplan that negotiates with Korea, the denuclearization plank, because the point of it is that it's like has the US push for North Korea to denuclearize?
I don't know if I'd say push, but it extends an offer in collaboration with China and allies. It's gets Japan, China, and the US together to offer North Korea a package for denuclearization with humanitarian aid and stuff.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna keep running.
Confirm term, Jordan, you said NOCO, NC3 stability, counterplan, Russian deterrence, NATO, fusion?
Yep. Are we good? North Korea advantage, when it explicitly concede to Charge 19, it says that the plan would not be credible towards North Korea. We do not solve any of this. Means that North Korea still believes the US will first strike them, taking out, obviating any role of the deterrence turn because they still believe we are deterring them, because it is not received as credible. This does not apply to credibility broadly, because that's what other state actors such as Russia, China, and Iran, which are all relevant to our other impacts, not relevant to North Korea. Now, the NC3 advantage at the top, declaratory fails, is incorrect. First is sufficiency. This refers to assuaging worst case scenario planning. It's scalar, not a yes no question, which is the app is still sufficient. 2 is inversion. It's more applicable to a present ambiguous posture, which takes out their dispatch, but audience cost solves their arguments. 3 is process. It's an important step towards broad risk reduction, signaling U.S. willingness to restrain. That's 7. 4 is words matter. Verbal red lines guide material policy and influence state perceptions. That's Lebovich. 5. Empirics going to be well received to assuage adversary concerns. That's Hansen. 6 is past precedent. Declarations of sufficient proof by germ welfare bans. That's Falk. 7 operational. Declare NFU. Drives irrevocable changes. Vanilla 16. NFU rules that impulsing non-alignment, purely second strike strategy. The forces after denunciation or political leadership. NFU rights to the background for classified guidance given. And the leaders developing word of hands and weapon. I'm still procurement. The NFU leads a radical visual shaping. Dr. Korea, Master planning. A training procurement. Elementary to the non-student permission of the deterrence. Now the even operational card. It's in, you should strike it from your flow. Look at this from Chambers. Ingram's 21 report about Chambers written justification required to determine your positions. Claims extensive research with individuals that represent defense establishments, defending secondary conclusions with little no evidence to find good initial acknowledgments. It's impossible to verify conclusions that are so necessary fails to address most important negative consequences. In order to measurable damage, measurable damage to credit fiat not being announced as irrelevant because it ties the U.S.'s hands to audience costs. Is proven by the 1AC argument. Also, nuances are significant. The fact that it's not just the presidential announcement, but rather the combination of developing U.S. posture through Congress as well ensures it's far more solidified within their perceptions. All the arguments above obviously all answer this. It's not worse because it's not less credible. They need to win. That is much worse than the status quo in order for this to be wrong, but deterrence is unsustainable. Which obviates this argument now. Hair trigger wrong, like incorrect. It's a question of the reception of the first strike do not need to be per se on the hair trigger. Rather, the belief that an adversary is first striking us due to spoofing, jamming, or dazzling, etc. All these threats to our NC3 systems ensures that the 1AC Blair 20 evidence that causes a nuclear accident, dropped ASAPs and terror impact due to lack of weak security, causing existential crisis. Per that is close solves. You cannot insert cards. It is a speech activity. You need to read evidence in order for us to have to answer it. I'll do that later. Obviously, if they decide to read the block. Now, stability advantage. Shift argument plan solves handle 1 and L18. And if you which right this ability to make absolute boundaries to nuclear conventional weapons by reducing silencing nukes, the moderation in depth not read a warrant, which means I get an which means we can answer it later. Conventional thumbs. Answer above by the right handle 1 evidence, but the plan is still sufficient no matter. Drop to every existential scenario, commitment traps ensure the United States is baited into a nuclear conflict because adversaries will test our red lines. But the development of adversarial postures via a positive control and launch warning ensures that an inevitable crisis between those states will go nuclear to the counterplan.
U.S. accent.
I answered that one. I answered that one. Counterplan. 1, perm do both. It shields and a benefit. Perm do the plan. That perm doesn't matter because it's not conditional. Now, plank 1, it must be binding and unilateral, but the counterplan specifically starts a nuclear war. Allen 24, no good in text recognitions proposal for toxic start of the working level and address denuclearization in response to state of sovereignty in every agenda. Hide and focus on denuclearization focus. Engagement realistic. Objective would be to improve security, strong political will, initiating necessary unconditional, even unilateral, consider progression to required to overcome the inertia of overall rates of revocation, no good generate crisis, the pushback against coercion, small crisis, have an natural escalating inadvertently to new conflict. Denuclearization causes the U.S. to try to force North Korean regime change. 23 finds a strategy to regime brutal U.S. regime like this class is something we are looking to accelerate. The U.S. can agree to deal to remove the North Korean nuclear program. The U.S. would go to other bits of that regime that have every incentive to keep the advantage of the dimension. No good political close regime change retaliating. That causes unconventional attacks, militia team regime change in North Korea. The capitation would increase versus use of biological chemical weapons. Military units that could exploit the break down state authority build for NBC weapons. Units that control those weapons assuming the U.S. are behind the attack or retaliated or inter-Korean large-scale conflict, but it goes up peninsula extinction. Miller 16. A country like North Korea will enlist PvP worse as North Korea inter-violent training advisor will be no immunity to the state where the task is small enough to develop a GMO with highly cloudy and high time visibility latency period. The state could destroy generate class and destroy the nation, strengthen existential threat, white civilization as we know it now. Plank 2, no solvency evidence or fail-safe review, just to get new answers when they explain it. Because not at all coherent as to the 1 and C. Also, the second plank is relying on inserting another highlighting, inserting above. We'll answer this when they read a solvency card. Now, plank 3, perception of first use alone undermines strategic stability, and also means Russia and China will say no. Erasto, top of it, 20. Logic of versus less than assumptions that might hold real life perception of readiness. Undermines strategic stability by right to lead to new armament competition, increases like the nuclear base and make out risks. Outweigh need to receive benefits, extra confident, and if you will the possibility of a nuclear war. Now, the deterrence again. Resolve this slump to Walt 130. FOBO look like misadventures of Afghanistan, Middle East, nukes, and Jordan raises the question of deep structural problem. America's power may overcome by opponents resolve far-flung regions, fairly critical for survival. Vietnam appeared more similar to Ukraine. Japan, Taiwan, action, more standard game, greater result, more movements. A harder to defend is less credible. One becomes a margin advantage, hard to maintain a uniform moment, but uniform moment is over. Given a weak adaptability. 2, deterrence inevitably clashes low level provocations ensure either a conflict or exposure to the US government. That's Batman Montgomery. 3, adversaries will escalate, not back down. Falu and Suzuki 23. Low level stakes of symmetric crisis make it difficult to assume the result. Pure stakes have advantage in asymmetric crisis. The corrections are credible, much more escalating to accessible no new crisis. Probability superior, the rate decreases, the severity increases. The case is demonstrated inferior versus opponents with them for US concerns about a no go around in China. A superior to be productive and case outweighs and removes the incentive for nuclear use at tantamount, capping their impact. Conventional substitution resolves incredible nuclear threats. This also takes out the assurances that the cohesion TA Palabius 15. Positive guarantee underestimate credit problem. A more tailored policy now relies on nukes, eventually more credible for the U.S. from a rare cost address concerns about consider the U.S. nukes make them more vulnerable to atomic magic and controls. Avoiding commitment trap leading us to lose credible structural towards increasing river resolve and no link reprisal ensure sufficient deterrence as Perry and Tanawal. And the plan solves the impact was done, work was done above invasion of the Baltics and anything else is too costly and conventional deterrence solves it. Lenoska 23. Baltics impose unacceptable costs like conventional guerrilla tactics, territorial defense and complicated efforts, Russia's ordered hybrid tactics and so on. Requires stockpiling to provide NATO early warning whether Russia's lineage rate, clinic after validity, actions of official justice probability to be low, requirements for return to these given major losses take a great years to recover, and humbled by sanctions and recruitment, cohesion of the NATO descent. No consensus now. Sauer 21 cracks the native nuclear wall. Visible always controversial without a force and Euro missiles that you causing more trouble for most trouble than Netherlands, Belgium, our host nations longer. TNW say more controversy yield out, especially after TBNW. Assurance is thumped to now inevitable retrenchment. Troop withdrawals in Afghanistan and the Ukraine war. 3. NC3 turns to DA. Jao at 23. Might be better than serve assurance to strike as extended turns against allies. Touch great important to the NC3 in regard to security survivability score. After the first attack, weather systems gets ordered to counterattack may be studied. And 4. Diplomacy solves allied fears. That's a Chang evidence. 5. No link and the plan bolsters conventional forces that you can cross by obvious 15 from the other page. 6. Second strike solves. That's the Perry evidence also done earlier. 7. Is lack of nuclear restraint degrades the alliance. Kosuken and Dalton 21. A nuke center strategy is not a lay. Concerns about nuke backfire. Exacerbate concerns about possible rash US action force. A crisis or solution where allies are value design their own nuke strategy not effective. Exacerbate entanglement concerns to drive to an independent nuclear arsenal. 7. Empirics disprove. Guam rotational presence in nuclear withdrawal from SOCO and the UK. 8. NATO's resilient. Chapter 23. The US faces challenges are extended to deterrence absence of arms control. A disarmament competition creates a risk of escalation. NATO has no equivalent military much more the nuclear teachers only subset that convince the resilience factor of political military investments while shared security interests and charging into U.S. engagement US and I'm strengthening conventional deterrence enhanced dialogue and consultation data. There's a further cooperation. 9. SSA fails. We did 9. SSA multiple sensory observations, different entities, issues, astrodynamic differences, orbital perturbations, right or genie models that these times any SSA sharing participants use different models to govern results in lower accuracy and errors to correct info about a model lead to disastrous consequences. And 10. We get new impact events when they inevitably bring new impact cards for this car. Cards are random launch, you list no reason why any of these are existential. Return the case. As for the one in C, the fusion descent. 1. To classify the analysis above, there was not an impact in most of those 1 and C evidence. We get new answers when they read impact evidence. 2. Other funding solves, but there's not a trade-off between the plan and fusion funding. CRS 23. Federal fusion already supported by a DOE, DOEOS, FES, and $163 million increase of $1 billion pivoted to applied research APR. ARPA also included Bethany, Gamma, NNSA, ISF, and Focus. Stewardship of the stockpile includes MIF. Fusion 3. Fusion fails. TOCAR 23. LNL. Fusion produced more than injected fiber fusion. Only infinitesimally smaller than the 80s energy. The last of a test of the nanosector reduces far beyond require over 10 times as much energy to operate just 10 to 20 minutes by a day. Small home obstacles to scaling up, including high radioactivity, rapid coercion, excessive water breakdown, and unfathomably high temps and pressures. Tricky will peak before 2030, depend on domestic supplies, makes a fusion impossible. And 4. China is too far ahead. Thumbs leadership. Law 12.7. China at the forefront of civilian new tech versus the latest gen. But China had other countries and Western countries can't expect to start until the early 30s. Until the early 2030s. 5. No fusion prolific impact. Franceschi et al. 13. Expert demand. Dampened worries fusions demanding and confined to advanced states. Daughters or NWS or states with a limited appetite curve. Attack to reduce weapons grade this year are less demanding and already in use of fusion for physical and represents a low probability. Go back to the NATO page. Unchecked fascism in the U.S. causes nuclear first use. NFU is key to solve. Hyben's 22. If populists grab the nuclear discharge civilians will to follow traditional establishments. Or listen to reliable if missile crisis would have got nuclear Kennedy or Khrushchev that our generals to lead a nuclear populist rotation for more reasons. Black white oppositional stance increase likelihood of nuclear incident. Carried all over. Resentments they have started taking from his trajectory. Extremists that have preach. A direct action to accelerate society massive emissions. It has a nuclear incident. Foreign powers good at calculate. The American opponent for striking a populist would love to see his opponent's funding. Spend populists exploit. Deterrence to demand political concessions and bring opponents to their needs distractions. A good effect to current nuclear crisis. Foreign powers can initiate crisis to intensify divisions.
Okay. I want to talk about this video card you read on declaratory fails. It says that a credible NFU would develop war plans, weapons alert, and procurement requirements. Does the plan do those things? Does the plan do war plans?
The plan does not mandate any of those things. We think that there's like operational changes that would obviously likely occur as a result.
Okay,
of
which ones? Like which ones?
Like the things we described in 1AC Cross-X, like alterations to things like war planning, war games, the way that we talk about our things, the way we maneuver our
So like
military.
post NFU, what are the war plans like?
Okay, so like I'm not like a commander at Stratcom, but like the logical way to think about this is the entire U.S. military now knows that in a conflict, in any contingency, the United States cannot first use a nuke. Right now, everything that they plans around that
And
idea.
why do adversaries know that? If it's solely internal, why do adversaries know?
Because none of that is internal. In fact, that is all incredibly public. We publicize war games, exercises, and training constantly. All those things are super open because that is how we send deterrent signals. The point of it is visibility. The point is that we alter that visibility to no longer be directed towards those things.
Okay, I want to talk about the Helidopoulos card on.
Yep.
Wherever it was, like across that three places. This card is just like adversaries, like or allies, like sort of like conventional. Like, what is the unique reason allies think like conventional is like more credible than nuclear?
Because the use of a nuclear weapon, especially using it first, is a threat that is so incredible because our allies do not believe, for example, that we would willingly risk not only the eradication of humanity as a result of nuclear war, but also that we would risk, attacking an adversary that we know could nuke U.S. cities.
Okay,
So
which
for example,
allies are concerned about nuclear first use?
which allies are concerned about nuclear first use?
Yeah.
Like, you just want some examples?
Well, this card said would free the U.S. from the reputational costs.
This
Address
card-
the concern of allies who consider
This card's actually
nuclear-
incredibly contextual to the Russian deterrence idea because it's in context of, it's the history argument it's drawing on is NATO. Like, that's the reason why it cites the example of UK.
This card doesn't say NATO once. This card doesn't say UK. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? This is an entire book, journal, and article dedicated to writing about the nuclear umbrella and NATO. That's Polydopoulos' whole point for the past 20 years. It's been about NATO.
Okay, so why are they assured like conventional?
Because conventional is a far more believable threat. Not only does the U.S. still have overwhelming conventional superiority, but it is one that does not necessarily risk, a nuclear conflict, or one where the United States, might not intervene at all. Because nuclear first use is something that the U.S. can be wishy-washy about,
Okay, yeah, what's it called? Like, NFU credible, there was a third subpoint, I just missed it.
The third subpoint was process. This is the extension of the Evans evidence that says that the plan is an important step towards broader risk reduction because it signals that the U.S. is willing to engage in drastic measures to engage in restraint.
Okay, and given you read, like, why don't your deficits to the strategic stability dialogue plan take this out?
Because post-plan, there's no longer the perception of first use because the U.S. can have no longer first use.
Okay, 10 minutes.
I'm doing the stand. Y'all good for the record?
Vantage counter plan, Vantage 1, Vantage 2, Vantage 3. Kentucky, are you all good?
Yes.
Okay. Texas, fantastic. The counterplan solves the case. They only went for the second and third advantage, which means it's only a risk of question. And framing issue here, Jordan just kind of asserted that they don't solve without entering any of the warrants. The counterplan, or deal with the second and third plank, can go back to the turn. The second plank does a nuclear failsafe review and eliminates launch on attack. That resolves a ton of their warrants. All their internal link cards about the threat perception of U.S. posture because of things like launch on warning, etc. Taking the weapons off alert will solve accidental use, but doesn't link to our disads, mon, and camp 20. Use makes launch protection with a bit of first second bits with the launch short, have a simple 100 to 5 more words, and everything that's checking that. Use up a meaningful lots of capability to limit launch on attack to reduce risk of an accidental work effect, which is human error, cyber attack, and eliminating the limits judgment error from the rest of shooting time, which causes accident by camp 23. Launch attack purpose or good boost abilities is the opposite because force rotation in lanes, we're putting 0-20 minutes to whatever message how to shoot happenings, for example, supposed to learn what a compatible launch or accident or use it. Then in launch or attack framing issue that if because they say they result in a clarity but not really operational, this is also an all cost to the aft because our adversaries would obviously never believe in a view of our weapons or still want to learn. Now the third plank, they just said first use says no, this is empirically denied. We have done tons of negotiations with China, etc., including back in September when Blinken literally went to the continent. There are a couple distinctions here. One, by offering strategic dialogue with Russia and China, we bring them into the fold to not only prevent escalation but talk through dialogue, etc., which allows to understand CBMs, force postures, procurement, which solves the entirety of the possible risk of accidents as well as all the strategic stability stuff on the third advantage. They drop the Monday Tunis card and post-dates their card by 3 years, says they have incentives to say yes because they want to avoid escalation. Here's more evidence. Strategic dialogue, restrain conflict, reduce escalation. They would say yes to it. Have brought about 21 strategic dialogue, security, understanding, have a security, restrain future conflict, reduce escalation. You can also doctrine meaning interpreted in virtual ways to attain dialogue, probably do better understand. To inform collusion, official to explore risk of eliminating collusion, not limited aggregate command and control. And even if disagreements would persist, highlighting the issue solves their terminals or Roscoe and China and 20. New station perception should generally be viewed as an obstacle to origin, instead of an agreement, dialogue, and other agreement, and understanding continue to that perception is put most danger to overreaction, nuclear policy, possibly U.S. Russia, particularly China, of strategic army competition, so we know the competitive measures, and they would 100% agree to this. This is the card from the 1NT. They agree to it for a variety of reasons. They're reluctant to communicate, but have an interest, meaning if we offer the door for communication, they're going board. Now, the permutation, it definitely links to that benefit. It declares an interview, which is what all of our links are predicated on, encourages adversary testing, etc., which was something they said on the third advantage. Now, this turning stuff. One, thanks for reading the on-card. It proves that we don't link to any of this turn stuff because the first plank of the counterplan is not a binding offer toward denuclearization. It rather goes to North Korea and says, hey, we'll give you some humanitarian stuff that's not binding. It's also empirically denied by all the previous attempts to engage, etc. It also says small provocations are what caused the impact. That will be solved by the deterrence we heard on the page. The Sukin card, the counterplan fiat through this, that we do not force regime to change on them. Rather, we offer humanitarian assistance and coordinate with allies, which is exactly the opposite of what Sukin is talking about. Now, the master arguments about unconventional stuff. Great, you got an impact for it. That'll be on the case page. Next one. I don't know what you are doing by conceding the Tetris card. It does not say that they would assume our first strike. It just says he'd be skeptical and would engage in testing, which you explicitly said on the third advantage. Quote, Jordan said, adversaries will explicitly test our red lines. That means they functionally conceded a disadvantage. The Larson evidence indicates that first use threats are what deter North Korean provocations in the status quo. In the absence of those things, it means they're likely to engage in both conventional and biological engagement. Second, they could drop the Milwaukee Independence card. Nukes are key because they're what North Korea is responsive to in the first place, meaning as long as we have that posture, they're deterred. But the plan, which declares an interview, means they feel emboldened to try red lines. Now, I know they're going to try to cross-apply uniqueness stuff, but the deterrence is strong now. IPA 23. Use it on the ladder security community television and North Korea mobilized all range, including the deterrence capability to analyze official missile capabilities, limited missile attitude, use capabilities, military extra security operation with Iranian status, that's what increased competition critical. Even with attacks and checks preparing an propagation, including surprise attack. Now, 100% of destabilize the deterrence in green, non-nuclear attack, incentivized adversary, risk taking through conventional, CBW, etc. Here are some details. One is a key to deter biowar, Miller 20.
nuclear bioweapons, they have active weapon program, difficult to verify whether the purple come massive, get a weapons rapid, bit of our techniques to go for the person more feasible, weapon attack by use, possible that we determine if there's one adequate appropriate ability nuclear weapons to respond to adamant system with the use option of the nuclear literal policy to determine something attack. Second, the plan increases propagation, chemical weapon usage, Act 21, and if you will increase your and if you can indicate our red line data, exploit space for maneuvers and blackmail maneuver necessary possibly literally nuclear and against chemical weapons. Act in deterrent. Thanks, they read the impacts for us on the case, or on the counterplan, no takes you backsies, both cause extinction, and the plan's unilateral concession undermines both broader deterrence and deterrence in North Korea, but it also 21 years now for the unilateral concession for the strategy to lead us to capacity data than the knowledge of priority, minimize diplomatic concessions, use nuclear buildup as better work relation contact in the North Korean containment, neutralizing that with massive deterrent measures. And I know they're going to try to say Tetris, it doesn't matter, and if you will invite conventional testing occurring in 22, use nuclear use table for another reform point of view to be able to buy promising provision no child within engage in aggression and use rifles, they're welcome to conduct habitual chemical, biological, cyber grenades aggression that if you use it off the table, and if you would be stabilizing open the space force use rifles and voted after the PDA and felt like gold declared on nuclear attacks South Korea, always appreciating condition how often it is by American nuclear weapons. It's especially true because North Korea's revisionist, Robinson 21. North Korea's actually revision efforts of the US President top surgeon always been resulting in a collegiate Korean conflict history, violent military provocation, future provocation backed by nuclear weapons, and collegiate Korean unification happened in North Korea revisionist first year, and understands first pursuing integration, strategy, regional, young target acquisition, compels or incentivizes us for going to begin a situation where we can compel escape because they believe it could be essence, escalation ladder. Includes more credible to the threats which remain confidential. Well, most of these people posture preparing by the time for war. Paper circumstantial intervention strategy. Last, they shouldn't get any new cards because Jordan didn't read it in the block, but I know they're going to try to read some. Any card they read isn't ahistorical over optimist. But in 21, most listeners know there's ability to use attack for mixing for you, which compromise sometimes about the yet to show good faith, opening and not get committed to build up a point, demonstrate North Korea cannot win. Thank you. Top level, all of these warrants for credibility in the abstract are wrong. Instead, you should prefer the Pepperaj and Batty in the Chambers card. Their Ingram card indicting Chambers is just like Chambers doesn't use have a methodology. That is one, inaccurate because he cites a ton of empirics, and two, cites declaratory changes, plus the Pepperaj and Batty card functionally dropped. The inversion, words matter stuff is all outdated and ignored. They don't solve the operational thing. They've been flip-flopping in this process, but hold them to the 1AC answer. They did not result in operational changes, but even if they did, no one believed it, proven by no one believing China's interview in the first place, and the fiat not announcement thing. It is impossible for the app to single the permanency of fiat. Advocates or adversaries have to assume it's reversible by future administrations. And there's already 50% Trump wins in 24. Now the Roeder card, they basically mishandled it. This proves our turn on the other page. It's worse for stability. They encourage adversary testing of red lines, which is their own claim because it encouraged them to know whether or not the NFU is credible. They need proof, and so they go to engagement, which means any risk at all that declaratory changes are perceived as inaccurate or something guarantees a link to the dissent. Now, the hair trigger stuff, there's no impact to hair trigger or other evidence which is compatible. Cites a ton of empirics, including past accidents, cyber attacks, etc. All of them are prevented in C3 entanglement and escalation. There's no reason why the plan would be any different. There's also no scenario for nuclear terror. Acquisitions nearly impossible. Organizational technical hurdles. There's little evidence intent. It's our Herculean challenge. Mueller 23 terrorist public. They say how the problem was too much risk. Impossible to back up. Murders, get damage. Properties are delivered by foreign intelligence and along with losing security. Seriously, bombs of devices with the bomb or plausible to manufacture device would be unreliable groups are incapable of manufacturing techniques like human scientists, blueprints, or granted group resource to design technical requirements and feasible processing gear and national security and intense power. Finance capital momentum even bunketed the nuclear device was year in Glen charge of the 20 hurdles also ran at 25%. Most at least than 1 million, and it proves they have no intent or capability. Mueller in 23 decreed which terrorist groups have pursued nuclear weapons is exaggerated. After exhausted general weapons, tactical plans are given a kind of priority use of loose nuclear high general subject negative or counterproductive counterfactual support of a moment of eliminating crackdown terrorists cannot afford to waste resource schemes with high probability of fair technological circles have seen prohibited. Bench 3. There is no way they solve strategic stability. In order to win the thesis of their general escalation cards, they have to win that the plan successfully would moderate adversary behavior. They have said the opposite. Jordan literally said they test red lines. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but that's because I really want to emphasize it, because that line alone will lose them the debate. Strategic stability will require them to win that adversaries will model. There's no evidence that would happen. O'Neill 21 prohibitive claim is the federal encourage gather photo and either stands as scrutiny with some evidence users being reciprocated boards. Is this because Russia's already using this large charge and no pressure with the NATO on the other way, China will be rooted as any initiative in security France and especially for the right to use. First, plus there's no uniqueness for us. U.S. superiority does not undermine crisis stability or modernization argument. They were just like, oh, you said it analytic. They didn't answer it. You definitely need to. Occurring, here's evidence supporting critically nuclear advantage crisis because or occurring in 18 clips critically nuclear advantage risk means that will lead to first target sentence and increased chance of nuclear warfare to have reacted to arms races, strategic ability, theoretical empirical evidence that nuclear superiority is not parity occurring more strategic ability, nature, and nuclear competitors empirically arm race or uncommon uses already lasting advantage. Every piece of empirical evidence disproves their scenario occurring in 18. If strategic ability to correct within nuclear imperial safe launch nuclear war gauge risk behavior as a primitive characters of nuclear period and if launch detection has sort of harvest and pure work and imperial state
back with the President Fear Stage 1. Upstairs are looks, but in the last one of the severe fears and inhibition of health that never initiated a loop launching in 70 years gives strong reason to be skeptical. This doesn't take out the North Korea term because this isn't in the context of Russia and China, and also disproves their strategic stability stuff, the usage with broadly now, the entanglement stuff. This is the only other scenario they can go for an accident. The empirical record is a crush, it would never escalate. Mazda 21. Since I'm bringing the point of that escalation to the opposite region of the 70 years, last time, the plans given you please did not respond to who's cast out, use employed to use what is ended on coming an extra escalate. Go for no complete desertion of command and control model, sail is a rock. Might be tempted to chemical opposition out of accident, like through escape, non-resulted in inverted isolation as food pressures have not materialized.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to understand the no link argument on the counter plan. So the, like what's happening with this North Korea business? Like, I'm a little
So
confused.
there's kind of two levels here.
Yep.
One is the cards you've read about a denuclearization push. Are the U.S. going in and forcing North Korea to denuclearize?
No.
The counter plan is not that. It offers them something for humanitarian. They have the right to refuse.
Yeah, but you said it's solvent, like it results in denuclearization, right?
What?
But it does result in denuclearization, correct?
No, I didn't say it results in
Yeah,
denuclearization.
that's
I
the
said we
whole
would
that's the
offer.
whole
it.
Solvency argument, the 1 and C. What?
I
But I clarified the same process and everything.
I said we would ask them for denuclearization. I never said they would accept it.
Okay.
And you never said they would accept it either.
Okay, sure. The other component of that, I'm a little bit confused at how deterrence resolves the ALM card. The ALM card seems to say that things like the counter plan, coordinated attempts to negotiate with North Korea are perceived as coercion, which is what they respond to. Like, how do you think you've no linked out of that?
Sure, two things. One is if, I'm gonna do an even if. One is we don't think it links because the offer for them to refuse is that your scenario is empirically denied by Trump doing negotiations, etc. Second is your own evidence would acknowledge these are small scale provocations. Deterrence prevents those from going nuclear or using biological or chemical weapons. But the plan will result in North Korea using all of those things because they want to test our red lines. I.e., to the extent your evidence is true, the plan is perceived as a greater risk, and so they're more likely to escalate.
So that just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know what component of the plan is coercive, which is sort of the premise of what seems to be both your solvency argument and our card. Can you unpack that
So,
for me?
yeah, there are two things. The card indicates that North Korea doesn't like both coercion and is incentivized in expanding its influence.
Yep.
Those things function together in this way.
But isn't the premise of the counter plan is that it engages in coercion?
Well, I think by bringing in China and stuff, we wouldn't necessarily call it coercion. Second is we think first two threats, even if there are provocations, keep those from going.
Okay, cool. I
above
want
and
to
beyond.
talk about stability dialogue. What do they talk about?
Yeah, so number of things, force posture, weapon procurement.
Yeah, what is
kind
that?
of thing.
Yeah.
So specifics?
So yeah, so what do we disclose a bunch of stuff? What do we
So,
disclose?
yeah, so I won't say it discloses every aspect of nuclear policy, but we do go to China and say this is some of our contingency plans. They
Okay, so I want
reciprocate.
you to give me an example. What
Yeah,
So,
so,
you go to
for
China.
example-
Yeah, so you go to China. What is our contingency plan? We tell them about Taiwan.
Sure, so we'd be in the event of a invasion of Taiwan, we would respond with a bunch of conventional missiles that were
Really?
deploying in the South Pacific.
You
but
fiat-
we're not
wait.
nuclear.
You-
No,
you
we're not
fiat
fiating
that?
these, this is an example.
Wait. So you have a card that says that that's true? Because it seems like we've said that we might use a nuke over Taiwan. So.
I don't have a card that talks about, you asked for an example of what the dialogue could give. look
Okay,
like
so let's do
given-
another. Let's do another geopolitical hotspot. What do we say about the SCS broadly?
The SCS
Do
broadly.
you have a card that says anything about China there?
So two things. One, the Monez evidence indicates China is willing to negotiate over different issues. Second, if you want me to describe a scenario of what
Okay,
the dialogue could
So
look like,
David,
I'm happy to do
Dave,
so.
my confusion is just I don't know why we wouldn't still just say we're gonna first strike you in any situation.
Is that a question?
Okay, one more was sent. It, the order is the Fusion DA, the Russia Deterrence DA, and then NATO.
Is it fusion, deterrence, NATO?
Yep. impact, plus no funding trade-off, and the Chinese too far ahead. There's no external offense on the page of Russian deterrence system will continue. There's no impact to Baltic invasion, which means they don't get access to any of their link terms, but will explicitly answer all of their deterrence cost applications. The resolve of argument does not apply to NATO. Plus, we're winning resolve is strong now in the context of North Korea, which is in the German sea. They say the deterrence collapse is inevitable. This is an assertion with a warrant in the 3C. U.S. nuclear deterrence a strong modernization. Assures Scalar 22. Given the ratios from sea nuclear readiness is reliable to use nuclear forces will stronger approaches commitment to modernization nuclear enterprise creating to China. Grounding the forces risk with that without commitment to deterring the war decline components are typical with modernization. Every military operation defense relies on a strong nuclear deterrent. U.S. cannot afford to fall short. They say adversaries escalate. This is answered by 2NC card. This is answered by 2NC. The card is not conceptual to North Korea. They say conventional assaults. This card is not about NATO or European allies. Just said that allies that are concerned about nuclear fears, but does not mention which allies are, which means it's not cross-applicable. Plus assurances will be answered on the other page. NATO. This not always in terms of case. First, NATO security alignment is vital to accurate SSA to avoid collision and misperceptions. Sustainability, collective defense, interoperability, and deterrence are necessary for effective NATO space operations. It was not world salad, it was warranted. They dropped every single impact, loss of space, capabilities, discuss conflict, space arms race, death space, terror response, misperception is likely given the centrality of space assets as permanent and second, ensures the makes conflict inevitable and causes first use. Third, certain solvency, both in NATO defense optimization and cyber war, reverse US impetus to reduce nuclear use and threats and makes them go back on their NFU, which turns credibility. Fourth, we control and uniqueness for all conflict scenarios, relative peace of the last 70 years. Best explained by strong NATO allies, Bush, 18, and German. And it was peaceful sourcing evidence working the past 7 years with every power worldwide. Significant evidence NATO has been instrumental in putting the enemy power war straight upon it. Pushing alliances for less likely to be in conflict, which holds after you control for other factors like monetary, ongoing disputes, alliances between each other. There's strong physical evidence, countries will start calling out of fear element disproof. Fifth, it's reverse causal along with the NATO loss of NATO cohesion makes the app impacts inevitable. So over 23 war. Return to European power regions growing authoritarian challenge global rules out of visibility and respond with unity, strength, must retain unity from dismantle arms control, but engaging in dangerous and nuclear civil rights, even if the world, even if the war and there was no sign of Putin's broader ambitions have changed. NATO must engage region to track global climate change at the same time, change behavior, challenge security, supply chains, internet. The one they see is a laundry list of impacts that are empirically denied by this world nuclear policy. It's tried after the negative. Now they say no consensus. Now it's not. Assume Ukraine tons of negative, tons of unity. NATO unity is high in recent summit. Demonstrates alignment over long-term strategic goals around Ukraine and Sweden. Their card is outdated. That's garbage. And NATO Koreans are strong now. It's enabled them to address threats from cyber and emerging technical to 9/11 when celebrates an anniversary from position of unity, strength, and more coherent alliance versus Ukraine return. NATO is motivated Finland to join with Sweden soon. New tech running NATO's unit covers cyber defense and disrupts attacks. Biden enabled another smooth cooperation. The U.S. and allies is a factor of trust. Biden improved Washington and allies. They say assurances up. NATO is strong now. The plan derails. They've sorted out major disagreements and zero in on deterrence. Microsoft relations are harmonious. Different are being hashed out in these meetings. NATO offer political and practical support. Military systems are being handed outside the alliance to avoid conflict would be and aid would be parallel to official proceedings. NATO, Ukraine cause will hold with great political significance. Ukraine will have great support. The consultation, a lot of work can be done. NATO has offered 500 million in aid. Now they say the NT3 counterfeit solves it. That was the 2NC. They say diplomacy solves fear. 1, this card just says that it puts us in line with the NPT. 2, NATO allies hate it and they hate that since it's a nuclear alliance, which will be more on the link debate. Now they say no link. And if you fracture the end of the NATO alliance by any calculated ambiguity, it upends long endings and sets up NATO and destroys alignment with nuclear armed arsenals. That's nuclear armed allies. That's also 1 by timing link. The app pulls out the rug from under the NATO alliance in the middle of war in Europe, creating divisions in the alliance. Drops anti-makers and regional rush opportunities to train to address your problems. And names involving limited nuclear attack, percent annexation, Crimean war in Europe against backdrop enemy will increase risk with the U.S. and the nuclear balance and NATO tradition. Calculated ambiguity. 2, posture alignment link with NATO's agreed. Defense posture is literally ambiguous. The plan wise NATO by making the U.S. and ally Robertson 21 by considering SP or NFU with the second NATO unity. Supposed to be resistance by NATO's and nuclear alliance is literally ambiguous in circumstances that might authorize special dimension and massive boost to capabilities, raise the profile of the nukes and NATO's defense posture ambiguity is necessary. Eye-catching gives declaration to undermine the NATO alliance. Now they say conventional assault, U.S. conventional capabilities are relevant to our argument. Perception of alliance alignment on nuclear questions in NATO are vital to cohesion and at the heart of the alliance's defense spending and NATO conventional ability is a link. The app requires NATO to rebalance and increase domestic capabilities, which causes political disagreement. NATO conventional is not ready. Nuclear backstop is critical to the short-term push 21 deterrence requires back to survival capabilities, premature posture improves the NATO conventional discharge or parks and need to be backed up by the option to escalate use. NATO should maintain strategic and non-strategic nuke options to dissuade Russia from escalate to de-escalate strategy. They say section right 12. 1 does not solve. First, you touch the key, which will the link debate. Second, cross by all the link cards. They say lack of restraint. Restraint is the status quo. The plan goes too far and freaks the hell out of allies. They say NATO's resilient. 1, the counterplan solves it. 2, actual experts with experience working with NATO disagree. Member states chronically underestimate both the value of NATO and their cohesion poses its its continued existence, ability to function effectively. Charge 22 to common narrative NATO being the most successful alliance in history and capable of constant adaptation, not explicitly questioned. However, success is approach similar. In terms of cohesion, essential to NATO's very existence, word to be a prime cohesion when not survival all along as a meaningful organization. They say NATO, they say SSA fails. 1, the card's outdated, it doesn't assume new advances. Second, they concede the internal link that NATO coordinated SSA is efficient, which means I'm not going to read any new evidence here. Now, they say unchecked fascism, the internally, the take out to credibility in the 2NC and credibility, and if credibility takes out this atom, which means there's no offense, but there's no impact anyway. First and 16 reality our times, instability and college of any major fascism, militarism. Now we see today political populism become global, not fascism. Populist victory should not be construed as hard against war. No, populist and interested in starting wars. They went towards isolation in World War I, broke out during the progressive, not the populist era of the world, and much less stronger. We have to fear not Armageddon. Go back to the link, babe. 3. Deterrence link. NATO allies proceed the office requiring additional conventional capabilities by members and weakening U.S. resolve, which weakens political cohesion. Cashback 21. Women in the role of nuclear talks would weaken the alliance political cohesion, cause significant controversy while welcome by political elites. Many, particularly easy we see this weakening security commitments. Rejections already advocated by France. UK deeply concerned about U.S. ready to undertake risks related to NATO countries credible to defense, but requires significant boost countries by other NATO members rejects the option to use defensive devices within NATO.
We've got 7:33. the stability advantage, the North Korea advantage, the counterplan, and then the NATO dissent.
Just to confirm, you said NC3, stability, NOCO, counterplan, DA?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, is everyone ready?
The plan is absolutely credible. Look, the Twin Sages asserted a bunch of things here about our arguments without actually extending their argument or answering any of our warrants, so I will extend them all briefly. 1. Sufficiency. Is scale or not yes, no, which is enough to alter calculations of other states. Conceded that their argument applies equally to the status quo, so there's only risk of absolvency if other states proceed the plan credibly. 2. Process. It signals intent and willingness towards risk reduction. That's our evidence. Conceded that the plan ties U.S. diplomatic reputation to NFU adherence, which shifts operational posture and ensures the credibility for Russia and China. 3. Empirics. Other countries. NFU assuage concerns, especially in the short term. They just asserted the China example didn't apply without reading evidence about this. That's Hansen. Proven by prior precedent over germ warfare, which is our Falk evidence. 4 is that words matter. They create verbal red lines and convey material implications, which is the most recent evidence on this question. That's the Leibovich evidence. Yes, we do have impacts. Conceded commitment trap scenario. Adversaries pressure U.S. command and control. U.S. will be forced to respond and miscalculate it because we lack a proportionate ability to respond. Only avoiding first strike posture stops the United States from feeling the need to launch a nuclear weapon in response, which means that it's insulated from NFU not credible because it's just about the United States changing its own command architecture and is completely distinct from anything else, and credibility is also irrelevant for the sort of U.S. modernization stuff. So this doesn't even apply to that advantage. I don't know why they did there. Stability advantage. Case absolutely solves our impact to credibility debate, proves that it stops adversarial risk-taking that is otherwise inevitable and causes nuclear escalation from asymmetry of interests. None of their defense assumes this structure or any of our uniqueness evidence that post-states theirs that says that the world is becoming more unstable in the status quo. We do also conceded commitment traps impact the fact that the United States has committed to first-use threats means that we will feel the need to get drawn in over minor provocation so they conceded escalate. Korea advantage. Look, this is patently ridiculous. Their 1NC card says that North Korea, quote, would never believe in NFU. There is absolutely zero link to this dissent. Their card says that NFU, quote, has no value to North Korea. They only sort of question us without actually answering why there is no link argument in the first place. We have made broad credibility arguments about Russia and China, but have conceded that North Korea doesn't believe the plan. They think first-use threats still happen, so nothing changes from the status quo in the eyes of North Korean decision makers in the world of the plan. Advantage counterplan. Extend permutation to both. If the counterplan institutes successful dialogue, it should pacify allied fears, or moving towards cooperation would freak allies out by showing U.S. weakness when combined with taking weapons off alert, which means that the counterplan links to the DA more than the plan does. Extend the denuclearization term, and they dropped the other half of the dissad. The counterplan causes North Korean lash out and nuclear war, which triggers their deterrence impacts, and they didn't know link it, so there's only risk that the counterplan is worse than the plan. Our Alm card says that focusing on denuclearization and engagement, even if they say no, results in North Korea pushing back, causing them to escalate small crises to the nuclear level because we don't prioritize other items on the agenda. They only answer the other card that we read. No new answers. I am not extending the other half of the turn, so conceding North Korea says no doesn't matter because it's about the perception of U.S. priorities in the context of diplomatic relations. Conceded Fanlo and Sukian. The deterrence dissad frames this because it says that this is the most likely scenario for war empirically, and it outweighs the risk of the dissad. Plank 2 of the counterplan now. Extend that strategic dialogue fails. 1, we get new answers because they didn't read solvency in the 1 and C2. Can't solve NC3. Drop commitment traps. Internal language creates the perception we are under attack, but the premise of our advantage is weak NC3, which ruins decision making, making better decision making in the world of the counterplan impossible. 3, bad decision making is definitely lapse of the plan. Blair Dolly team risk of failure. I mean, how do you chronicle C3 start irrational inclination of strategies, preemptive strike shot, shrinking connectivity forces, crucial transition, vastly reduced scope of current plans, more reliable C3 allows central funds money to be reallocated. 4, it can't solve stability. It does not stop bullets from the blueprint for preventative strikes, neither of which requires launch under attack regardless. It isn't seen as credible since it's only operational changes. 5, ships, do I need to do that card?
Which one?
Ships don't happen without NFU.
No.
The stability dialogue part of the counterplan fails. 1, signal perception of first use causes distrust, making any negotiations in pure bad faith, and they always imperfect, especially since we still threaten to first strike them. That's a Rostow at worst. It's linear since case is large, and the deficit outweighs the risk of the dissad. 2, say no, also takes out fail-safe review. The warrant is the same. Do I need to read cards on this? 3, NFU is already in every talk, and China still thinks we have it. Clocking 20. Question many has been a sticking point for talks between China for the Tank representatives who asked for a commitment. China made clear U.S. commitment to NFU is essential to free a country from fear U.S. refusal to meet this is a significant disincentive. NATO dissent. No terms case, their cards are just listing random nouns near NATO with no warrants or connection to one of these scenarios. All of our scenarios are inherently more probable because of internal link defense. Strike the Beauchamp card, 1 isn't constructive. They don't get to say NATO solves war than 1 especially since it's not tied to a terms case argument. NATO is resilient, that's 2AC9. Absence of arms control, UX independence, there's no alternative. And security interest lock-in investments and things like SSA and dialogue and consultation mollify ally fears that Shepherds. The problem with this dissent is MSU's internal link is about cooperation. Everyone agrees is good. There is zero evidence that NATO dissatisfaction with the plan results in them freaking out about everything, just that it causes schisms. Fights do not dissolve the alliance, and problems will be remedied internally. Burton and Stevens, 23 NATO members, respond to new tech and improve life political conversions. NATO's stability tested by Trump's respect to norms, trust, and loyalty. Stability during Trump's affected by directly by security issues about fair perception and attribution that should not be overstated. Disagreements not threaten the alliance or impact overall coherence of U.S. strategy. NATO tend to recover from serious disputes, including Suez and Iraq. Biden foster similar self-healing effects. Nuclear disputes are inevitable, private, and solved by U.S. leadership. Andreas 18. Debate over cutting possibly NATO's new posture continues. Some view forward deployed nukes into civil commitment. Others express concerns about military utility, public opposition to nukes most countries, and preference by most to avoid public discussion means new policy is pushed into the shadows. More pressing matters offer convenient distraction. Preference reinforced by the tendency to rely on U.S. leadership, especially on NFU, but it does not spill over. Sanders Docker 20. Different members of NATO take different positions without including the alliance already divergent on nuclear landmines. Closer relations, prohibition, TPNW, not involved leaving NATO or fracture alliance. NATO's evolved and will continue to adapt to shifting norms. SSA fails. It makes accuracy worse. Conflicting aerodynamics models don't mesh, producing confusing and inaccurate results that increase likelihood of collisions. At Sweden, it is functionally dropped by the 1R. They just run a card that says NSA makes it more effective, and we said that optimal SSA is the worst of all worlds. They didn't say what new advances have come or why NATO enhanced SSA overcomes any scientific issues, so I'm not reading more cards on this because they didn't answer the argument. Populism, it is functionally dropped. Their defense is outdated, not about the U.S. And conceded terminal impact means any risk is sufficient. Credit is irrelevant because it's about U.S. internal constraints. And circumvents the counterpunch since populists in control will circumvent constraints to wag the dog. Via nuclear warfare, there's no warrant that it wouldn't be the case. Conceded that it causes deterrence collapse due to political instability, which means they don't get new answers, and it turns to dissent.
510.
one card, it was sent. It'll be, if you're ready for an order.
Yep.
The NOCO advantage,
Yep.
the advantage counter plan, the NATO disad, the NC3 advantage, the stability advantage.
North Korea counterplan, NATO, NC3 stability.
You my water. Yes. Yeah. NOCO advantage, advantage counter plan, NATO disad, NC3 advantage, stability advantage. You ready? Perfect. Kentucky, you ready? Yeah, great. Kentucky has dropped a disadvantage with the risk of extinction. They read the impact hard force on the other page that chemical and biological war from North Korea guarantees extinction of the human race, means it's try to preserve the status quo. Now, framing issue for this link argument, they are conceding the uniqueness claim, i.e., yes, our Tetris card says North Korea would not believe it, that they would not perceive it as credible, etc. But they dropped why that functions as a weak magnifier. They dropped the Kronig card, Bennett card, IEA card, Miller card, Robinson card, etc. I'll impact them out in a second. But all of those cards prove that in response to a declaratory change like the plan, North Korea is going to increase provocations, i.e., because they don't believe it's credible, they want to test it by launching provocations through chemical, conventional, cyber, etc. Now, I'll pick all of the link cards because this is literally a joke. The Miller card, it says that first use threats are what prevent North Korea from engaging in bioweapon provocation. This means that we control the only internal link to resolving both the on-turn on the counterplan and the status quo. They have read for us that these guarantee extinctions spill over and kill the whole human race because you can't stop a biological pathogen like a plague when it's been increased, meaning we have guaranteed risk of extinction in the status quo. They also dropped the AP card, which proves uniqueness for our argument, i.e. deterrence is stable now because North Korea knows that our first view is credible and means that they keep provocations below the threshold. This means that the only risk for North Korean war is in the world of the app, because even if you give them 100% risk of the turn on the counterplan, those provocations stay limited because we still present first use threats. Now, the Akiyama card, it says the plan invites provocations through conventional weapon turning. This is especially true in the context that they view it as incredible because it means they're likely to use chemical weapons, etc. to test it. That causes an inverse escalation, causes North Korean nuclear use drugs in China, etc. and guarantees nuclear war. Third, they dropped the Bennett card. The plan is a unilateral concession which gives him green-lighted potential for aggression, engaging in provocations, etc. Now, the Kronig card. This card is explicit that an interview invites provocations as they test our red lines. David also dropped my cross application of Jordan lines from the 2EC on the advantage that, quote, an interview would encourage adversaries to test our red lines. This is our link argument. Because they don't believe it's credible and they've conceded North Korea doesn't believe it's credible, it means they're guaranteed to test through the varieties of methods. Our evidence comparable to those will escalate and cause extinction. Lastly, they dropped the framing card, which is the Robinson evidence. They've conceded North Korea's revisionist, which means they're guaranteed to view the escalations a certain way. We control a frame for how they view any kind of engagement, which means in the absence of the plan, they will only perceive it as a reason to increase provocation. Look, we have a 100% risk of extinction. They have no terminal defense. The only thing they did was extend our card that is a link magnifier. Means if we win any risk of a deficit or solvency of the counterplan to either advantage, it is game over because we have a 100% risk of extinction and you can only die once. The counterplan. The counterplan solves the entirety of the second and third advantages. We will also acknowledge, say no, this will just be a turn card, but the first they per do both. It definitely leads to that benefit. All of the 2AR or 1AR analysis about shooting was done in the context of NATO, not North Korea. Obviously, you cannot shoot North Korea for two reasons. One is they read a turn to the plank. If they do the permutation, which includes all the three planks, they link to their turn, so they can't extend it. And second, you would never shoot it because they've conceded that North Korea doesn't view it as credible, meaning they test our red line. So in the world of the perm, which has the U.S. DOTA clearance and if you, they're guaranteed to test it. Also, increases the risk of the coercion stuff because they view it as a kind of wombo combo package. Now, this turn argument, they just extended the on card. This is the worst of their turn arguments. They conceded a number of things. One, they conceded that the counterplan is a non-binding offer, i.e. it goes to China, Japan, and the U.S. and they extend an offer to North Korea. We agree that North Korea would refuse it. Is about unconditional talks. It only says small crises. That matters for two reasons. One, the unconditional talks mean that if they or not what the counterplan does, because the counterplan doesn't force regime change. Second, the small crises are solved by the conceded APR card about deterrence on the other page. Third, they drop that it's empirically denied. We have engaged in denuclearization talks before and they've not caused escalation, which means there's only a risk of our scenario because we haven't declared an NFU. Last which proves that other stuff also comes first. Lastly, they conceded the stuff like regime change stuff, which is the only way they could get to bioweapons, so we have the only terminal extinction scenario. Now, it definitely solves NC3, the second plank of the counterplan engages in fail-safe review and eliminating launch on warning. Their Blair card is just about modernization. They drop the nuclear fail-safe review, engages in these kind of modernization reforms, so it strengthens our NC3, and they also conceded that eliminating launch on warning prevents us from responding incredibly, i.e. it resolves any kind of commitment trap because adversaries and the US know that there's time in between because we denate our warheads, so they wouldn't escalate. Now, the SSD stuff, it definitely solves strategic stability. They would absolutely trust it because it's unique in the context and is proven by other dialogues. Their Kaluki card is wrong. SSD is better than NFU, and this is in the context of China, which proves that it solves, and they would say, yes, South 23 vision, we tasted a fusion for months of discussion, but assumption discussion with China requires NFUs, missing nobody to dialogue with, Washington, order, policy discussion, first state, better understand possible to the perception and escalation, checks, sometimes we've got what a view, was it never like individual issue discussion would only require policy changes, that negotiations interview with dialogue, instead of mutual understanding, establish a foundation, cooperation, offer the best process, risk reduction. That's also a deficit to the app because it proves they would never not only believe that the interview, but also are unlikely to be discredible. They said linearity stuff, they dropped the Topiani card, which means even if disagreements happen, it's enough to solve their impacts, which proved that it's terminal defense, the NATO advantage, or the NATO deal. Concede like NATO resilient, no impact stuff takes it out. The populism thing was not dropped in any way. They dropped that the counterplan solves it and that credibility turns it because populists would not follow on first unit anyway, which means the plan gets circumvented. There's no impact of populism and prefer isolationism to war. And the only example of war is breaking out during the progressive era, not the populism one, which takes out the terminal, which is 180 Ferguson. Also, eliminating the launch on warning obviously solves any terminal, and they didn't tie it to an extinction effect, which means the bioweapon thing outweighs and see their advantage. I don't have to do a lot here. Their only thing was commitment traps. They dropped no hair trigger pressure, which takes away that kind of pressure in the first place. They're empirically denied. Nobody's using a commitment trap pressure because there's no pressure to escalate. And they dropped that it wouldn't respond in different kind of situations, i.e. there's no ability for people to initially respond to a cyber attack, etc., which means there would never be a commitment trap. That also takes out the internal link of the stability page. The last thing I'll extend here is they dropped no entanglement, which proves that there's not only no commitment trap, but also no tie-in for stability. The counterplan results in dialogue, which obviously solves the other bit of the advantage, which means extinction from a bioweapon with nuclear World War III awaits.
We have 4 seconds.
order is the advantage counterpart.
Yeah.
North Korea advantage.
Yeah.
NC3.
Hold on, say that again.
Advantage counterplan, North Korea, NC3 stability.
You said NC advantage, then the stability, or you say NATO?
No data. I said NC3 advantage, then stability. Right. That's also good. It started I had to vote affirmative to not diverge from the status quo. The fundamental problem with the 2 hours that they've gone for a dissent with fundamentally no link coming out of the 2AC because we explicitly considered a no link argument. The only you are certain that the plan does not alter the status quo calculations of North Korea, but only the counterplan even has a possibility of engaging in a North Korea war. You can flip all the calculations that the 2 hour does, that it's try or die, that it's 100% risk for a biological or chemical weapon to cause extinction, that a U.S. North Korea war would eradicate all of humanity, that you must live to try, that you must try to live another day. Only the counterplan increases even marginally the probability of a conflict even occurring in the first place because terminally there's not a link to any of the deterrent stuff. Now, obviously, as long as we win this component of this argument, it is simply a NAF ballot, but also the premise of the no link argument, as well as all the counterplans solved with massive stability, etc., nuclear wars arguments is the reason why you can also just vote AFA presumption on permutation 2 both, because if we are at bare minimum correct that the plan does not alter the status quo, then the counterplan has nothing to solve. So we're not going back into the case impacts, which means it simply flips affirmative. But this is especially true since you know that the counterplan to some degree affects North Korean calculations. Either it's bad and you vote AFA because the plan is not linked to the DA, and the counterplan certainly causes the North Korean war, or the counterplan is pacifying towards North Korea, which insulates itself from any of the impact sweeping over any of the North Korean deterrence DA impact, meaning that permutation overcomes and there's the disadvantage as because there is such a small link to this argument. Now, the next argument on the counterplan was no link to the ALM card. This argument makes absolutely zero sense because ALM is hyper-specific. In fact, the mandate of the counterplan is not about unconditional talks causing coercive measures. It's about preconditions to those unconditional talks being the things that North Korea perceives as being problematic, especially in the context of denuclearization, which they perceive as being a sovereign right. The entire reason why the formation of the country has been centered around nuclear ideology for the past several decades is because they perceive constant regime change being threatened from the external and outside. Any attempt to denuclearize North Korea is perceived as a violation of their very sovereign right to even exist in the first place, causing them to lash out, engaging in minor provocations and conflict, which are far more likely to escalate to nuclear conflict. Provided with our arguments and their arguments, it obviously terminally thumps any risk of deterrence because it alters the status quo calculations. They are only reading unique discards in the context of status quo deterrence being effective. So even in the face of first use, only the counterplan can increase the likelihood of war. This is filtered to the Sukin card rather than the 2AC, which is contextual to also being about North Korea conceded 1 hour cross application. There was no true answer on the 2 hour. It is a systemic analysis of asymmetric nuclear dyads, which is also a core 1AC premise, i.e. the idea that there's massive asymmetry between the United States and North Korea insofar as the United States possesses massive military superiority over North Korea, but the asymmetry exists in the opposite direction in terms of interest because obviously Korea has far more investment in its own sovereign interests on the Korean Peninsula than the United States can ever possibly have, which means that they must show resolve in the face of perceived U.S. coercion, which is what the counterplan is, i.e. they must escalate and initiate a conflict to demonstrate resolve in the face of what they believe is an existential crisis coming in the face of the United States. Now, if you're still a little bit uncertain about the link, the ALM card goes on to be even more explicit. Yes, there's normally a conditions counterplan deficit, but it goes on to say that the reception of allied coercion in the context of denuclearization is what causes them to engage in minor provocations, which they can then escalate to nuclear war. We've all agreed that that premise is especially likely because if they engage in those things, and accidental escalation, etc., are all far more likely because they're not disputed that unique disclaimer for either the 1AC or even the 1AC itself, which is far more likely they use all those weapons. Now, the only other argument they had here was that empirics disproved the premises of argument 1, no card. Again, as I have out of here, since we got a card from 24, that is explicitly making uniqueness arguments as the attempt for denuclearization talks now is uniquely to catalyze conflict 2. Empirically disproven the Hanoi summit was an instance in which the failed negotiations over denuclearization sparked North Korean provocations and escalations of crisis. The reason why not go to nuclear war because they had not yet modified the nuclear doctrine to introduce automaticity, or the reason why tensions are extremely high now for my 1AC uniqueness. And the third argument is that our evidence is predictive and they did not said anything else. The rest of the account was entirely irrelevant because it did not resolve any. It was never explained as resolving any of the North Korea stuff, but again, if it is, the permutation obviously solves. Now, the North Korea advantage. This entire argument is facially ridiculous because the 2NC was quite explicit in conceding to Charles 19. The problem for the negative is that the 2NC re-explained the card to being like, oh, you know, North Korea might still provoke the red line after the NFU, and then the 2NR had no re-explanation. I'm going to give you some quotes from the piece of 1NC evidence. No one can believe that North Korea would be reassured to post an NFU. That the next line is that conventional is the thing that matters far more. Misperceptions are a result of paranoia of Western military power, and when push comes to shove, people will not believe the NFU because they have no reason to do so. This was a 1NC card, explicitly tagged. The plan cannot solve North Korea. It said no signal misperceptions. You should punish Michigan State for failing to recognize this argument earlier on, and basing the entirety of block strategy based off of this. I have no clue why they did not go over the NATO coercion DA because it seemed like the advantage had on itself. The entire rest of the app would have gone for an argument that fundamentally does not link. Because ask yourself, if the plan is not credible, does not send a first use signal towards North Korea, then why do they care about anything that the plan alters? Every single piece of 1NC a card required makes an extraordinary claim. This is a no first use policy. It abdicates the role of first use in U.S. military doctrine, which is the core critical thing that is deterring North Korea now. The plan does not alter that because they do not believe it. They believe the U.S. can still bludgeon them post-plan. They remember every single credibility argument they made even further in the entirety of the debate because you're not going for any of those scenarios. I mean, that's entirely irrelevant. Every card, Kronig, Miller, etc., all say that a formalized NFU policy getting rid is not just the announcement of the policy itself, but the literal advocation of first use, which the plan does not do, and North Korea does not believe because we've conceded an utter solvency takeout that takes out the entirety of the advantage. Now, the other thing they said was that NFU encourages testing. I'm not sure that that's what the Tweezy said at all. In fact, the Tweezy said that the status quo encourages testing, but again, irrelevant at best for them. This is impact uniqueness for us because it says that North Korea is trying to see where the red lines are now, but the countermeasures of provocation towards them sparking nuclear conflict. NC3 advantage, stability advantage, concealed impact defense. Not going for it. Doesn't matter. Like, look, 2AC made credibility arguments explicitly in the context of Russia and China. We were like, it is credible. We are going to concede their card that is very explicit and very good. Since the plan is not credible towards North Korea. They do not believe the plan gets rid of first use. That's like fairly simple. Your flow says it yourself. You shouldn't even need to read cards. Because like only the counterpunch diverges from the status quo and causes likelihood of war. All of their impact calculus is irrelevant in that world because only voting neg introduces the possibility of that occurring.
Who made yours?
Nate Doc is sent if you're interested.
You need a document.
Sure.
Okay, that's in her.
put it to the negative. I don't think this treacherous evidence that you concede takes out all the terms that read that NFU deters North Korea, CBW use, and conventional provocations. The treacherous evidence just says that North Korea wouldn't believe that an NFU by the U.S. would reassure it that, you know, that we wouldn't use like kind of nuclear threats. But that doesn't mean that North Korea in the status quo doesn't think that nuclear threats are credible to deter use of CBWs or conventional provocations. It just says like they wouldn't think that the no first use would be like valuable to North Korea. It doesn't take all the deterrents that they make a link argument that unilateral NFU would be perceived by North Korea as a giant unilateral concession conveying U.S. weakness, and so that would incentivize North Korea to be more provocative at the conventional level. And then they read several link cards saying that nuclear threats deter CBW use. If we didn't like, you know, have the kind of the nuclear threat, then, you know, they would kind of like, you know, be able to use CBWs without like fear of nuclear retaliation. That kind of deters CBW use. So I just don't think conceding that one card takes out these, that the NFU would be perceived as kind of like a sign of weakness by the U.S., lack of resolve to confront North Korea, and kind of using CBWs. The counterplan evidence, this ALM evidence, the way I read the ALM evidence, it pretty much admits that it's a good argument for why they would say no to the counterplan. That like North Korea just is not ever going to negotiate this nuclear disarmament. You know, so they would say no, and I don't, you know, maybe there's a little risk that like, you know, making this offer, you know, might, if there was a crisis, risk an avert escalation. But I just don't think the evidence is very kind of like definitive. I think the link turns are more solid linked to a nuclear war with North Korea than this card. I just don't think it's that great of a card. And then the counterplan, you know, has like other stuff, you know, they negotiate, they offer it, you know, and, you know, they say, well, you know, we'll give you like humanitarian aid, tools, all like garbage. But I agree with you, they would say no, but I don't think that the counterplan would be perceived as kind of like an aggressive policy that would like cause North Korea lash out. I just think the case terms are a more direct link to a nuclear war than this disadd to your counterplan.
So I understand the part where, you know, if you resolve the link in their way, I immediately understand why like the deterrence even outweigh like the counterplan. I agree that that's not that great. I guess my confusion is like my understanding of why the plan is a signal of weakness is because it tells North Korea that we won't first strike them. But if we can see the card that is like post-plan, they do not perceive that to be the case, why does that not take out the link?
No, I think no, I don't read that. I think it'd be perceived a sign of weakness because the United States is saying that, like, you know, we won't kind of threaten nuclear use against you, and so you can do whatever you want with your CBWs.
But we can see that they don't believe and that they are always paranoid about the West.
No, the no believe is that they don't believe it would help them, it would reassure them. That doesn't mean that they don't think that nuclear threats deter.
Well, no, yeah, I agree about the uniqueness component. What I'm saying is, like, I don't know why there's a link if the plan, if post-plan, North Korea still believes we'll first strike them because they don't believe in NFU to ever be true, and they're always scared of us. Like, if we had conceded this card to 2AC and, like, not done any of this stuff, would you, like, zero the advantage, right? If we conceded that the plan is not reassuring to North Korea, like, we wouldn't have solved this advantage, right? If we conceded in the 2AC?
You're saying you don't solve the advantage, that North Korea wouldn't be believable, which means that they don't like negotiate.
Well, my understanding of the DA is that it's like, you know, we need to maintain the first use threat against North Korea. Like, they need to believe that we're gonna first strike them, so they don't, like, you know, use CBWs and nukes or whatever. We were like, we're gonna concede your card that says that the plan, like North Korea does not believe that we are actually adopting a no first use policy, that North Korea still thinks, you know, still thinks the status quo is the case. I'm a little bit confused on why that doesn't take out the link.
they read evidence that says that, having the nuclear threats deters CBWs and kind of like keeps North Korea kind of like in check. A no first use,
I think maybe a more direct way of getting at the question is like, what did you think changed about the way that North Korea sees U.S. nuclear posture in the world of the plan if we conceded territory? So like, what does North Korea see as a result?
that the US is kind of like, is kind of like making concession, they're kind of like weak.
But how's
So
it
they would be emboldened to,
But how's it a concession if they don't think it's true?
What are we conceding? Like,
no. They don't think it, I think you're extrapolating a lot more than what, that Tetris card doesn't say that much. It's not, all it says is that they wouldn't think it would reassure them. It doesn't mean that they don't think that the status quo is, nuclear threats are good.
Yeah, so, like I'll grant you, I agree their cards are not that phenomenal, but like they tagged it to be a case takeout. And like what I'm asking is like irrespective of the deterrency and stuff, right? If my 2AC just like technically concedes that argument, right? I never answer it or whatever, and they extend it, like the advantage would be.
I don't think it's a very good piece of evidence.
But like, if I never answer it, does it not zero the case? Like, I understand the card might not
The card is
say-
bad,
I agree, but like, if I drop it,
so,
but like, so you don't think it would take out the case if I dropped it?
I don't know, but in this debate, like, I don't think this piece of evidence takes out all the terms.
Okay.
You can't concede this one card to take out all these other terms. The card says almost nothing.
Like, they said it. Okay, sure.
and the link you're voting on is more the like Bennett card, or is it just like everything in totality? Is it like the card they have that's like unilateral concessions?
Yeah, because you don't really like kind of address the unilateral concessions card, these that were perceived as kind of weak, and they would be like, they would think they could do whatever they want. You don't even try to like make any arguments against that piece of evidence.
Okay.
They're extended in every speech.
Yeah, okay, like we're just gonna disagree about that, but that's fine.
There's no point.
You good if I ask a question? Okay, do you think there would be an even better way potentially in the 2NR to distinguish like what the counterplan was offering North Korea with what the card was saying, or did you agree with kind of how I characterized it as like the counterplan just offers it, it's not this like unconditional force, which is what their cards are talking about?
Yeah, I understood that. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I guess I'd ask is, do you think there was a better way in the 2NR to help explain why the Tetris card is like a link magnifier? Because if they believe it is incredible, they're likely to test. Or did, like, it seemed like you kind of had that part too. Was there maybe a way I could make that even clearer, that like, if they don't believe it, they're more likely to test, which is kind of what the Bennett card was saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, it was done well in the 2NR. Okay. I think that was all I had, Steven. Okay. Thanks. Thanks. Good debate, Kentucky. Good luck. Good debate.